Okay, hopefully this needs no introduction at this point. 7 shows, 7-word descriptions for each for spring 2018. And though I am technically keeping up with more than just these 7, several of them are sequels, and I don't really want to bog down this list with series that, yeah, probably everybody has heard of or is watching. So I'm going to limit myself to 1. Can you guess which? This spring is also interesting for me because, again, excluding sequels, I don't feel like I have a definitive frontrunner for my anime of the season. For winter, A Place Further Than the Universe leapt out in front early on and never relinquished the title. With fall, I was pretty much looking forward to Girls' Last Tour and got exactly what I wanted. Even last summer, it was pretty much a dead heat between Made in Abyss and Princess Principal the entire season. But we're already a good chunk into spring and I'm still uncertain. There are just a lot of really good shows, even if one hasn't definitively claimed the title for me. And the upside is that this season I might end up finishing a good amount of these series. So with all that said, let's get going. Okay, you know it's coming, so let's just get right into it with My Hero Academia Season 3. Spring has sprung, heroes are here, rejoice. Yeah, what more can I say? It's the 3rd season of one of my favorite shows, and Studio Bones continues to flex their muscles with respect to this series. It didn't take too long for us to get an awesome fight, and I can't wait for more. I have still read through most of what will become Season 3 in the manga, but holy hell am I excited to see some scenes animated. We are in for a good time, I assure you. Lupin III, Part 5. Tales about the dangers of live streaming. Or at least that's how the first major arc of this series goes. Despite being on my watch list for this season, I hadn't actually seen any Lupin before this. I was just generally aware of its existence as a franchise. So I guess you can take me as a good example for just being able to dive into this series despite it being Part 5. Because as I understand it, all of these parts are largely disconnected, kind of like James Bond films. The first arc of this one, for example, tackles the idea of trying to stay incognito when essentially the entire world has a way to broadcast you using the device in their pockets. It's really interesting as a concept and is something that I think they flesh out pretty nicely while still having fun with it. It's fairly easy to get an idea of the plot and characters after just one episode and then you're ready to go. It's just an entertaining show with entertaining characters. You should check this one out. Sword Art Online Alternative, Gun Gale Online. SAO plus PUBG minus Kirito equals good? Yes, in almost psychic fashion, SAO has managed to again hit another trend near the height of its popularity. But that's not the only reason I'm actually enjoying Sawagago. For the most part, it's just fun, it doesn't take itself too seriously, and honestly, Len has had some of my favorite facial expressions from this season. And yes, I'm well aware that both Golden Kamui and Hina Matsuri have fantastic faces as well. That being said, I don't think I'm quite as hooked on this series as I expected I'd be. And I also may be biased in that I just wanted to like the series from the outset. But it's been a good time, even if I'm enjoying it a little less now than when it premiered. I do plan to keep up with it, because I'm interested to see where the story goes now that the first major arc appears to have concluded. Ouma Musa, Pretty Derby. Actually great, despite horse girl idol premise. Okay, I originally ended up watching this because they decided to drop the first 2 episodes at once, and it was at a point in the season where none of my other anticipated shows had begun airing. But to my surprise, I kept watching. I don't know if I was just amazed because given the nature of its premise, I was very much expecting it to devolve into horse girl-shaped trash, but instead the moral arc of this series seems to bend away from fan service nearly every chance it gets. Oh, the horse girls are playing Twister to Train, are they? Well, I'm sure we'll get no explicitly lewd shots? Huh. Oh, well now they're all going to the beach, so I'm sure we'll see all of them in pretty tame one-piece suits with, again, a lack of explicit fan service? You see what I mean? Not that I think fan service by itself can ruin a show, but I really wasn't expecting to be able to recommend this series unironically. Though Ouma Musa does still leave me with a number of questions. Questions like, are there horse boys? If not, how are horse girls, made? And most critically, does glue still exist in this world? I ask just because it's implied this world is very much identical to our own, just, you know, horse girls. So either they use alternative forms of adhesive, or this series is about to get a whole lot darker. Megalo Box. Another series that has thus far received a good amount of praise, and for good reason. Its older anime aesthetic combined with a kick-ass soundtrack and some brutal fights has blood both pumping and flying by the end of most episodes. It's a stereotypical underdog boxing story, so it's understandable if that's not your speed for some reason, but it's been a blast to watch it unfold so far. And I'm also gonna make an odd comparison, but watching this series, it feels a lot like A Place Further Than the Universe, in the sense that Megalo Box seems to know exactly what it wants to be, and is doing a great job of executing on everything it needs to in that regard. It's without a doubt a hell of a fun time, and it's definitely near the top of my list for this season. Hisone to Masotan: How to Train Your Neurotic Dragon Pilot. This show is one I had picked out about halfway through the winter season as one I was looking forward to and with any luck would probably enjoy. So naturally, Netflix snatched it up. Yeah, I really don't have a good track record with this. Last season ended up being a frickin' anomaly when my top shows didn't end up in the hands of either Netflix or Amazon. But I've made my peace with this, because if it being on a more mainstream platform means it reaches a wider base than it otherwise could, then I'm happy for the people behind this series, even if this model does kind of neuter weekly discussion. And that itself is kind of a shame, because this show is downright hilarious at times. The main characters are lovable as hell, and I downright adore the animation style they went with. If I had a complaint about this series though, it might just be that as of right now, an end goal hasn't really been established in any form. It's fine because it's a more character-driven show anyway, but when you add something like dragons, I'd really like to know if there's anything this is building towards. All that said, it's a small issue, and if nothing else, it does keep me on my toes for what's gonna happen next episode. It's another series that's definitely vying for my top spot. Hina Matsuri. Imagine 11 being adopted by the Mafia. Yep, that's essentially how this show begins, except Hina skews a bit more towards Mob's emotional spectrum than 11's. And I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys, I was not in the right mindset when I first watched this series, because I dropped it about 7 minutes in. The absurd premise was just too absurd for me. Silly, right? I mean, look at what else I'm watching. It just didn't hit the right note at the time. But wow, am I glad I went back and gave it another chance. Once I knew what kind of show I was in for, I had an absolute blast. It's witty as hell with great characters and gorgeous animation that shows no signs of slowing down as it's continued. I also like how the story isn't afraid to deviate, so the focus isn't always on Nita and Hina, because really the Anzu and Hitomi segments are some of my favorites from the series thus far. If you go in with the mindset of having fun, then I think you're really gonna enjoy this show. Plus, as I mentioned earlier, there are some god-tier reaction faces to be found in Hina Matsuri. But those are pretty much all the shows I am actively making an effort to keep up with on a weekly basis. I've also given Wotakoi and Comic Girls a look-see, but I've only seen a few episodes of each, along with, like I said, all the sequels. This really is, I think, a consistently good to great season, and I'll be interested to see where I end up ranking them at the end. But what do you think? Feel free to let me know and give me some recommendations for why I should watch what you're watching. As always though, thank you for watching, and an especially big thanks goes out to my awesome patrons, PenguinPandaZero, OverjoyedSoup, MVPino, James Morton, Mr. Idealist, and everyone else for generously supporting me. If you would like to join those awesome people, you can click the right to visit my Patreon page, click the left to subscribe, and that bell icon will make sure YouTube acts like my channel is successful and let you know whenever I post something. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time.